Good morning. I think what we will try and take through today is our own journey of GST compliance. I think GST has given us goalposts on a milestone basis. It started with GSTN, started with the ASP GSP portal. When it got implemented on 17, I think service providers like us came forward, offered you a solution, and the more advanced organizations even went ahead and did an integration with the respective ERP. And we were implementing it, but have we realizing that while we did this implementation, what is it that we do? In this process, we started giving some 22 odd sales fields, separate inputs across to the government. While 3B, another summary level of 5 to 10 fields were going. Parallelly, government gave you, from your supplier side, another 20-25 fields. So on an average, in the ASP GSP part, you had 59 data points, which was available with you in the form of this application, available in one part, one data source. Then came e-way bill. Similar exercise happened. You went ahead, maybe engaged with some service provider, got some technology, one more portal, one more application. And here also, we started sending some 51 odd fields just to generate an e-way bill along with the transportation details. And government had already given one more provision to allow you to bring back the e-way bill generated against you. If that specific technology that you have has the provision, then you would have that data. So technically, we are saying another 85 fields available with you. Now, this time, into a separate data application, another data set. One in GSP, one now in e-way bill, and finally, the government came up with our e-invoicing. In this case, another 70 odd fields that you are pushing across to get this e-invoice confirmation, conditional, non-conditional fields put together. And recently to IRP and GSP, government has given a provision where now you can have e-invoices generated against you back, which is another 50 fields. So technically, friends, we have exposure to 274 fields. Our problem is that the service providers or applications that we have are disjointed. The GST does not speak to e-way bill, and the e-way bill does not speak to the e-invoice. If my ITC wants to know that was the e-way bill generated against me, sorry, the GST will say I don't speak to e-way bill, so I won't know. That's our current status today. When we were talking about in the morning on the notices being raised, one of the reasons is this, where irrespective of either having a single service provider or a multiple service provider, we have independent applications with separate data sets. Now let's look at, so no single source of truth, spread all across the way. One truth is our ERP, and rest of the compliance truths lying all across. And plus on the top of it, the way we function as a corporate, we will have multiple other sources of data available cut across into the organization. Let's restrict to only the compliance piece to start with. Why are we saying the government is quite a few steps ahead of us? They have also implemented all the three. Three networks were there, but they very smartly created one single data source. Nandan ji ne itna to kiya, gave you all the networks. You are all worried about 20 तारीख को what is the load factoring happening, but he smartly put the entire data into one single point. So against your GSN, GSTN, he has 274 data fields, each field talking to one another. So he wants to know ITC ke samne whether this vendor is e-invoice enabled. He has that hard-coded field available, and plus then he'll go and see whether the e-invoice was generated or not, and then here comes a notice. And then we try and deliberate, ye aaya kahan se? How do I understand against this ITC enabled tha ki nahi tha, he has generated an invoice? All the data is available, and friends, at the end of the day, These notices are coming from our own data. We have only sent it to them. Our suppliers have only sent it to them. That supplier data is also available with us. The point is, how are we looking into this data? How are they structured? So, what is it that we want? What we want actually is, can I get a platform where on a single user ID I can get into the system? Like I want to buy a pant shirt and some innerwears. Now, one option is to go to 3 different stores, or I go into a simple store and he has all the 3 options. So we are saying, get a single application, single platform, which gives you all these applications, and all the data required is available at a single source. Then I have all the options to do 3-way reconciliation, 4-way reconciliation, 6-way reconciliation. My database is akin to what GSTN has. That's the need of the hour. This is something which will de-risk our taxation exposure. If we don't take this stand today, we will continue to live with not knowing what is likely to happen to us next. We all thought that we have bought applications integrated with ERP, we are automated. Actual automation is this. This point number 1, now I think these notices are flying thick and fast, and maybe 18, 19 will come, and all the CFOs and the controllers here want to know, how am I faring with 18, 19? Can somebody tell me कि 31 दिसंबर को क्या बम फटेगा? कौन-कौन से पॉइंट पे बम फटेगा? I want to have a GST assessment report, which can tell me what is my compared to GST R1 liability against 3B, what are my against E1, E-invoice, against E-way bill, RCM claimed versus what is it that I can get, paid versus what I need to additionally pay for in 2A, excess claimed if anything in imports, on ISD part. Now, these are parameters which I am trying to narrate are the CBIC governed parameters for audit, given to GSTN also. Actually, you should be having a report on that. But you can only have that report if you have the data in one place. Now, these reports are something which will give you very clearly, which can tell you today that this is the report on these 8 parameters and this is my exposure on each one of them. This prepares you today very clearly to go and present before the management and say 18, 19, these are the risks. Because you don't know what happened 5 years back. We had all the provisions and exceptions available there from 20% to 10% to 5% gradually. But this is what the status is. So these are something which is required on an immediate basis. If the application is what you have today, then what you need is someone who can help you out with these assessment reports, who can help you out let's talk about reconciliations for the time being. Notices are very closely related to reconciliations. 5 साल पुराने हैं. Do we even know 5 years back which of the team member did what reconciliation of what month? Is that guy still there in the system? Is that PC still alive where this working sheet is? You have the end result, which you have taken and claimed something. You need one of these services which can tell you and give you, okay, 17, 18, give the purchase data, the system throws across the entire probable buckets of 90 to 95% probable buckets. You have the output available to at least reply to these notices with a very clear-cut logic available behind it for him to satisfy. Similarly, if you want to know, yaar, e-way bill ke samne wala notice aa raha hai, e-way bill kahan se laun? There is a provision where one can help you get all the e-way bill data of the last 5 years, then manage the rest of the part into the system and give you the reconciliations. So this, friends, is something on de-risking taxation with one simple rule. Please have a single source of truth, data into one place. Now let's talk challenge number 2. De-risking is our topic right now with the way things are happening. We will have to de-risk. Now, the other way of de-risking is to take some root cause fixes. Root cause fixes are nothing but learning to understand what is it you want and how I can help you. That's what is all about this. So before we get into that, let's look into your current challenges. Still the challenges which is facing us day in and day out. It starts with reconciliation. We all still do manual reconciliations, a part of it. We still struggle with only 5 to 6 buckets. And within these 5 to 6 buckets, we want to understand what could be the overall scenario and how can I optimize my ITC. This manual thing has to end. Second part, which I had already covered up to you, 3 different sources of data, so I will not revisit this again. Third part, what is at the basis of this invoice, ITC, purchase invoice? Let's talk about this simple element. Do we know how this is collected in the organizations today? Could be by mail, could be physically, could be at the front office, could be to the direct department, could be coming from through the fleet. Multiple sources. Whereas government has made life easy up to 5 crore vendors that you will have a digital copy. You can actually collect it digitally. Sitting on 20th, I should be in a position to say that, okay, 70% of the invoices collected, 20% abhi bhi nahi aaya, but I can't. The only visibility I have is data entered into my ERP as purchase entry. That's where I actually think that my activity starts from there. Let's presume that the invoices have come. Now I have to enter it into the ERP. Is this most critical input validated before it is getting into the ERP? And second, how it is getting into the ERP? What is the validation factor? Majority of the cases, the eyeball. Majority of the cases, it's the eyeball. And my entire ITC and working capital is dependent on this one simple transaction. So this validation is something which is required. The next point, and these I'm only trying to narrate the challenges which we all have during this current regime. 45-day payment to be made to MSME. We all know. Nirmala ji did one more thing, that if you will not pay in 45 days, then you will not be able to take deductions against 43B. This is notification is implemented from this financial year. Now what will happen, we don't realize now, but the end of the year, the auditor will come and say, boss, give me the list of your vendors, its invoices and payment dates. And then give his diktat to you. 50 crore का है purchases, 25 crore में payment 60 दिन के बाद दिया है. We all understand the implications of it on the tax and various other penalties that we are talking about. One more thing, from 1st of October, government is implemented that for every income that you book, invoice that you generate, the invoice has to happen within 30 days. That's the limit now. Otherwise, it is non-compliant. What we need to do as an organization is, I will have to now do GL reconciliation practically every 10 days or 1 week. No more only facilitating the annual returns, which means nobody can do this activity manually. You will have to automate this along with the ERP to make things happen. E-invoicing is a term which is, generation is very critical for business. And you need options if there is a hiccup there into the generation. We all have smarted ourselves with our smartphone by keeping 2 SIMs. एक नहीं चला, दूसरा चलेगा, कम से कम काम मेरा रुकना नहीं चाहिए. Boss, you have the same facility available today. There are multiple IRPs. If one is not working, the function should be there to switch over to the next IRP so that the functional part of it moves seamlessly. And finally, 20th of the month, the most critical day, where you make our best efforts to ensure, optimize your working capital, and we have to pay our taxes. And there comes a set of vendors who are non-compliant. On the 20 तारीख को, बाद में कर लेते हैं अपनी मर्जी से जब भी फाइल करना हो. But on 20th, they are non-compliant. Which leads to this aspect of cash flow pressure on me. I have to organize the pressure, I have to pay the taxes. The point is that the ERP which we have has got a wonderful account payable module for the goods movement, the stocks, the GRN and the approval matrix and everything, but they don't have a compliance layer. My ERP does not tell me that when you are making payment, boss, this is a non-compliant transaction, इसने filing नहीं की है, payment रोको. ERP doesn't say so. So you need to have a mechanism or a solution available which can tell you, hold, this guy is not compliant, this transaction, take it across and pay it, deduct his GST amount and pay him so that I don't go through a cash flow pressure unnecessarily. Now, this is a very fairly simple situation where everybody is following my credit policy. It doesn't happen all the way. So if you have those critical vendors who dictate their terms and want payment within 2 to 3 days, 5 days, or system बताता है तुम तो 2A में हो, how do I make a payment? So there is a provision where you can categorize the vendors based on their compliance history of last 12 months. Has he been paying his returns on time? Has he been paying his taxes on time? And categorize and give them a score. What you get in CIBIL B2C scores, similarly one more score. Categorize the vendors based on this score. So when you are making payments, it goes and sees, okay, this guy is 80 to 100, good enough, make the payment, 40 to 80, GST hold karo, baki jane do. With these two layers of logics in your account payable module, you can be absolutely sure that your cash flow pressures are addressed. So we will take the first one, the reconciliation piece, which is the closest to everyone. Ideally, this is what we get on the 15th of the month. This is our scenario where we see more or less around 20-25% lying in purchase only, and we all want to understand, and the manual activities start on the balance activity. And the expectation is from the team also that can I, by 15th evening, come to know that these are my 97-98% probable buckets. And that too at a click of a button. Data dala, system ko run kar diya, and घंटों में ये आ जाए. This is practically feasible today. The problem is, when we do this activity, we are exposed to some 5 to 6 buckets of reconciliation. We will try and take our decisions based on that. And ML-based reconciliation will help you expose to more than 28 different buckets with full logic, which can give you by the same day this entire thing. And this is something which we have implemented at very large corporates. To name one, Tata Steel. This concept of first, I would say, piloted there. And we showed it to them, because just I am narrating here, we narrated there also, and they said, please walk the talk. So we did that. We showed it to them. They gave their data on the 15th morning. By 4 o'clock, we gave them this output. 97.5% probable buckets available. This helps you reduce, and the best part apart from this thing is, it gives you even one-to-many, many-to-one, many-to-many reconciliations also. One such incident we saw, there was this vendor giving services all across the country, multiple GSTN IDs. After the services, each one of these GSTN is to file their returns. क्योंकि कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक सिंगल एंटिटी को दिया था सेंट्रल हेडक्वार्टर, ही गेव वन सिंगल पेज इनवॉइस टू टाटा स्टील. वो जब रिकंसिलिएशन दे स्टार्टेड डूइंग, इट वाज नेवर मैचिंग. द सिस्टम थ्रू, एंड यू नो व्हाट इट केम आउट? वन परचेज इनवॉइस अगेंस्ट 232 इनवॉइसेस एट द अदर एंड, which these guys only said we would have never been able to do it manually. But the system through it puts all the logics and gives you automated reconciliation. Reconciliation done. The second challenge starts thereafter. How do you intimate the vendors? So here, there is a provision where automatically all the mismatches, a communication can go to the vendors, emails. Then corporate India only told us that, yeah, these emails, half of them, 70% of them are all trash. All Gmails and emails and Yahoos, they never reach. These guys don't even see. So we understood that one more layer is now available where this would go into the GSTN notification center of that specific vendor. These guys only go to GSTN and file returns. When he will go in that notification center, all these notifications of your mismatches will be available. Now, there could be no better legal evidence available for you and that entire audit trail, even to show it to auditors or to the legal authorities on your entire transactions and the efforts that you have done. I will skip this because I have discussed and come to this part, and I want all of you to absorb this statement. Compliance before purchase entry into the ERP. Does it happen today? Compliance happens thereafter. This is the most important entry. It's like ERP agar mera Bhagavad Gita hai, to one would be very concerned what is getting into Gita. What is getting into our ERP in purchase entries today? Point number one, we look into the process of the entire invoice journey, and we are talking about source to pay right now. So it starts with the vendor. Everyone wants to know my vendor validation factors. Active hai, nahi hai, and there are 10 different parameters including MSME, and if he's MSME, is he a compliant guy? Because a non-compliant MSME gets into my system, I am through. I will have to give him payment in 45 days, whether he's compliant or not. Second, how am I collecting my invoices? Can I digitize it? Third, once I have collected this invoice, can I digitally extract the data and validate it against the government source? Having collected the invoice, can I now reconcile it with my PO, with my GRN, SRN, and then finally put it across into the ERP, and then run the entire account payable module to pay? This in turn is the entire journey, and each is a business transformation process of its own. There is no one person. I can understand when you look into it, you will realize, ye to supply chain karega, ye to purchase karega, ye account payable wala karega. There's a team effort over here. There's not one role function who can define this. Now, let's look into the first part, the vendor validation. Boss, there are more than 8 to 10 different APIs. The option available for everyone is, there's a platform, put the input parameters, validate the vendors. The same platform can also help you onboarding of the vendors so that everything is validated on day one. But today, when I am starting on day 0, and I have a set of vendors available from the back end, we can validate everything. Or else, you can use these APIs and consume it into your ERP and do the validations as per your frequency requirement. Option number 3, managed service. Give the data input parameters. One would validate this entire aspect to you and do it. So this validation now today is very key for you to know your vendors. That's the most critical part. Second, the collection of invoice. Here, one option is I give a vendor post box. A user ID password is available. Everybody can go in, link it, put your invoice into it. It can work as a two-way communication also for you. You can even send the PO, receive the invoice. If there are gaps into it, send it back. We keep getting this input saying that, look, not all my vendors have this PC or a laptop for me to give this stuff. So second option is simple, create an email. Purchase invoice @cygnetdigital.com. Ask everybody to send soft copies. Now, I think the debate should not be there on soft copies availability. 5 crore plus everyone has got a soft copy. Second, every single vendor has got a smartphone. And the Khata books of the world are available into every single smartphone. Soft copies can be made available, and all these guys are absolutely digitally oriented. Ask them, then he would be making digital payment. So nobody is now averse to digital. It is just a matter of that courage within us to get into this implementation part. Having collected this invoice, there is one more aspect which is there for large manufacturing firms, is invoices coming with the fleet. A large part of it is coming with the fleet. And the challenge with this process is that once the time consumed at the gate to check what the goods have come, and depending upon the type of material that I have, there is always a concern and a process where you want to check whether the RC book is active or not, whether the driving license is active or not, and rest of the part, and it takes wholly good 15 to 20 minutes to clear one truck on an average for him to pull him in. And till such time, he's all lying out on the field, and in any large organizations you go, you will see a fleet of trucks standing outside, and most of them standing on the midway. Here, by digitizing this brick and mortar process, we tell the vendor, truck is ready, 5 minutes pehle send the invoice onto the vendor post box. User ID kiya, dal diya. Truck is ready, send the truck details, send the driver details. Within 5 minutes, the process will validate the invoice with the government reservoir data, plus the M-Parivahan APIs will validate the vehicle number, say the RC is active, the driving license is active. Within 5 minutes, this guy has got a confirmation that everything is active, ask the truck to move. When the truck comes the next day at the gate, the same system's access is available to the front office gate. He only puts the invoice number, he gets all the validation. Ye clear hai, ye clear, ye clear. 1 minute mein truck saaf. We gave this one specific unit, this unit only to one of a large steel conglomerate in Bombay. And their estimation is, we will end up saving anywhere between 2.5 to 3 crores per annum. And it's not just on the manpower part only. They're going to restructure the entire transportation cost, because he says, abhi truck jaldi se aayega, uska rotation badega, driver ka jo holding cost tha, wo kam ho jayega. There are multiple such parameters leading to which their expect is already implemented. And they are very clear this much benefit will come through this. And this is just one of the process of automation within this entire process. Now, let's talk about the key part of it. Invoices come to you. We extracted the data from the invoice. We understand this one simple fact before I start. These invoice templates, if you have 2,000 vendors, you will get 2,000 different templates. So this, what I am talking to you, is a template agnostic system. Template agnostic. So it will read every single template, extract the invoice data, the fields that you need. Thereafter, it will go and read the GSTN ID in the invoice. It will tell you, is it active or not. Then it will read whether this GSTN number is e-invoice enabled or not. Then it will go and read this QR code. The QR code has some 8 data points. It will go and match each one of them. This will not only do this, it will also tell you this QR code has been generated by which source, NIC, Cygnet, or any other IRP. Which IRP generated this QR code? That's the technology piece. Now, what has happened in this process? What is there in this QR code? E-invoice data. What happens to the e-invoice data in the next 48 hours? It goes as GSTR1. Same thing comes back to is 2A. So when I am telling you this data is matching, what is it that I am telling you? That the data here is same as what is there at GSTN. This is the root cause fix to every mismatch issue. This, my friends, is compliance before purchase entry in the ERP. The root cause fix required to minimize your taxation exposure risk. Plus, like we said, and like I was mentioning it earlier, and I will highlight it, there is an OCR-based also technology impact into this entire thing. And there will be plenty of propagators here who will say that we all understand the challenges of OCR and the efficiency that it will throw in. It takes time to build up and all that. Fully agreed. In this case also, Government of India was 10 times far more cited than us, while we were trying to understand how to make corporates understand and live with this thing. On the last month, they also gave one more API to IRP saying that you will get e-invoice generated against you JSONs. मतलब अब मेरे पास ट्रांजैक्शन वाइज सारे डिटेल्स आपके आ गए. Exactly what is there in GST, and all that I have to do is read the QR code, match it, that everything is matching, everything is same. Go over here, take up this API, park it into ERP. And the icing on the cake, this data is with HSN details. Think about a situation where you have your purchase entries with HSN details. This is a reality available to be used and to be implemented. Yes, when I was talking to professionals and CFOs, someone said that, look, yaar, Anil, what you're saying is not feasible. ऐसे ही लेकर के मैं थोड़े ना डाल दूंगा अंदर. I have to see what material I have received, I have to match it. Fully agree with him. You will need a situation where you want to match the PO with the invoice data collected and reconcile it with the GRN. That's why I said park it, don't post it. Validate now. So even the material which you have received, you have validated. This gives the entire fix to the entire issue end to end. Then go ahead and do the entire part, whatever you want to do on the posting part of it. If there is any gap between the GRN, then go ahead and do an auto debit note if required. If that's the process of the organization, even this is feasible. And additionally, you can do MIGO, MIRO automation, GL reconciliation, auto GRN posting. Each of these automations subsequently are feasible. So, for the chief financial officers, who are the future officers of the country, you have this wonderful opportunity on two aspects. One, to leave behind a legacy of zero mismatches. And second, have a single source of truth. This one I will move quick. This is something which we have recently implemented, so I thought I'll share it with you. TDS determination. All that is required is from you the source, the description, and the HSN details. So we have developed a system where for TDS determination, we take up the transaction level data, look into the HSN, decide what could be, look into the description, which has come from the ERP or from your purchase invoice details, read it, and then suggest what could be the applicable rate for it, because that description is the key, which should be able to tell you and match it. Parallelly, validate the entire vendor identifier, run an eKYC, look into the various thresholds. All these inputs gets into your tax calculation engine, and it will give you line item wise TDS. This is now one of a very large e-com platform is today validating this entire thing. Pilot use is already there. We just launched it last month. And this practically can be a very good validation factor for your TDS which you are doing, because we all understand the impact of TDS going wrong, the legal impacts and the penalties and all that. So this is one more small step in the direct taxation part which we have done. So that's it from my end. Thank you very much.